that by the time a lot of kids get to kindergarten, they're already a grade or two behind. And by the time they get to 6th grade, 7th grade, 8th grade, they can be 3, 4 grades behind. And even more terribly, it's disproportionately true for the least well-off, the low-income and minority kids particularly. And the long-term costs of this, both to the kids and the society, is staggering. It's, some have called it an assembly line to failure, in some cases all the way to prison. Now, some of the effects you don't see until middle school or on into high school. But the thing that's known, we know it's rock solid proven that the groundwork for a lot of these problems we later see is what happens or unfortunately doesn't happen with kids when they're real little. Now the good news is we know how to address these early childhood needs and have been making a lot of progress, thanks in major part to some of the people in this room, and Illinois has been a leader. And we have the right agenda. We know what to do. And even in this environment, we've got to stabilize funding, increase kids' access. Still something like half or more of the kids in the state don't have access to quality preschool programs. Part of this is improving the standards and putting money into professional development, both teachers, principals. And as I said, we've been making progress on all these fronts over the past decade. The real bad news is that with the budget crisis, we're losing ground, and a lot of this progress is being put in jeopardy. And it's still a little unclear what's going to happen for sure in this budget year, but in all probability, not only will preschool for all, the main Illinois program, not be fully funded, but funds are probably going to be cut. And if that happens, as a result of that, thousands and thousands of kids who had just made it into good preschool programs are going to be thrown out of them, and we're going to lose that ground. Even worse, with the millions of dollars of unpaid bills from the state, a lot of the key agencies doing this important work may have to either way cut back what they're doing, or some of them have to close their doors and go out of business. And if we dismantle all the work and this infrastructure from these groups that's been built up over the last decade, it's going to take years and years and years to get it back. So we're lucky in the city and the state to have some great leaders and advocates working in this area, as they have for years. And to set the stage before introducing them to you, I want to show you a brief video that will give you a little feel for some of the work and the kids they work with. This one from the Ounce of Prevention Fund.
I want to be a nurse when I grow up, and I grew up going to be a doctor. I want to be a lawyer. I want to be a policeman, a teacher, doctor, a dinosaur.
I think sometimes people just don't realize what they can do or what they can achieve. You have to know yourself that you can dream in order to share that with your child, to let your child know that there's something better, there's something different.
I want to either go into social work or become a teacher myself.
I see this having legs. I see children who are in 2nd grade, 3rd grade, after having the benefits of this early intervention, really doing well. There's a way to change the cycle, but you have to start early, which means right after they're born. You can't wait. You have to do it, now.
So please join me in thanking our early childhood and K-12 education leaders who are here. And if you'd please stand as I call your name. Diana Rauner, Executive Director, Ounce of Prevention Fund. Kathy Rigg, Gaylord Gieske, Vice President. Kathy Rigg, President. Gaylord Gieske, Vice President, Voices for Illinois Children. Robin Staines, Executive Director, Advance Illinois. And Ceci Nyman and Jim Alexander, Illinois Action for Children. Thank all of you for what you do. So I know many of you are deeply involved in the K-12 issues that we face. But I'd also like to talk about one area of learning that doesn't get as much attention, but bears directly on the conversation we're having today about the state of civic health, and that's civic education. One of the original purposes of public schools in America was to bring kids along and turn them into great citizens. And I don't know how it was when you were growing up, but in my middle school and high school, we had a lot of great classes in the Constitution and the government, and learn things and try to also get us out of the classroom and do things around the community. Unfortunately, that in many, many places, that's not the way it is today. 8 years into the No Child Left Behind world, which brought an intense focus on standardized testing in the areas of math and science, the social studies have been increasingly neglected, and our school's civic mission has been all but abandoned. Now, given the political challenges and the other issues that we face, we think it's very, very important that we reverse this trend and get quality civics education back into the schools. Now, there's some good news from the Illinois Civic Health Index that I talked about earlier. In spite of all the problems and the depression over things, the overall state of affairs, there was strong support among people in Illinois for improving and expanding civic education, including building quality service learning as part of the school curriculum. Last year, the McCormick Foundation and the Illinois Civic Mission Coalition co-produced the Civic Blueprint for Illinois high schools, providing guidelines for teaching active citizenship to our students. And this Civic Blueprint has now been endorsed by the State Board of Education. The democracy schools that are a part of this blueprint are accredited high schools that promote civic engagement and have a strong program in civic education, including fostering direct involvement in the community. Now, there are 8 of these democracy schools around the state so far, but we believe and hope that that number is going to grow significantly. Now, members of the Civic Mission Coalition are here today. They've actually been holding their own strategy planning meeting upstairs. What a coincidence. And came down to join us for lunch. So would all the members of the Civic Mission Coalition who are here today please stand? Now, one of those members, John Schmidt, is a member of this coalition, and John is also head of the Office of Social Studies and Service Learning in the Chicago Public Schools. John's recognized nationally as a real champion for his leadership in civic education and service learning. One of the CPS programs is their Civic Leadership Camp, which is a 3-day program to help get CPS students to get ready to be citizen leaders in the future. And we're lucky enough to have a group of those students here with us today. So, John, could you and your group of future leaders please stand and be recognized? Kids, students. Thank you all for being here, for sure, and good luck with camp. John, thanks for what you do. One more initiative we're adding to this effort. Earlier this month, the McCormick Foundation launched our Freedom Express, which is a mobile, interactive experience. They told me not to call it a museum because that sounded boring. So it's not a museum, it's a mobile experience. And it's great. We were going to have it here, but Jay wouldn't give us enough parking passes to fill the lot across the street. It is going to be out at the Chicago History Museum on July 4th. So you can see it there, and you can look for it. It's going to be all over. It's Cantini on a lot of the weekends when you get out there. And I don't know if some of you had been to the physical Freedom Museum when it was in Tribune Tower, but this is the next generation of that. And what we found was in this day and age, it was getting harder and harder to get teachers and classes down into downtown Chicago. So we decided to do the reverse and get our show on the road and take the story of the First Amendment and freedoms and how important they are even today out to the kids and students. So also look for it at fairs and events near you. So the second area I wanted to talk about was ensuring that our communities have access to the news and information they need. You may all be familiar with the Thomas Jefferson quote that if he had to choose between having a government without newspapers or newspapers without government, he wouldn't hesitate to pick the latter. Now, happily, because of the efforts of many of the journalists in this room, we're not yet